What's good? Hey man, so news just broke that Giannis and his agent are going to have conversations with the Bucks about his future, about whether he stays or whether he goes elsewhere. Shams Charania broke this report 27 minutes ago on ESPN, and man, Giannis recently has been talking about how he's been wanting to win in the midst of the Bucks' recent losing streak in which he's been out. Right, he's been talking about he's been emphasizing how he wants to win, and he's been emphasizing that he doesn't love the direction that things are going. You've been seeing him delete these posts on his Instagram, and he's deleted everything except for the championship posts, I think. And it's like everything's kind of been seeming to go in a little bit of a bad direction with the Milwaukee Bucks right now, and especially with their relationship with Giannis Antetokounmpo. But with this news breaking, I think this just accelerated the whole Giannis potentially being a trade piece during this coming trade deadline, which is in just 2 months. I think a lot of us, including myself, in the midst of like this 9-game losing streak, or they've lost 9 of their last 10 or whatever it is, I think a lot of us, myself included, have kind of looked at this as, okay, Giannis is unhappy and it's probably coming towards the end, but I just don't think it's going to happen this trade deadline. I just don't think it's going to happen quite yet. I think it's going to take another year. I think it's going to take until the offseason for some things to materialize. But now I think all of us are looking at it as like, yeah, Giannis is definitely out with Milwaukee probably by the end of this season, maybe by the trade deadline, depending on what things are looking like. And with that, I think we've got to talk about some potential trade targets for Giannis, and these are some of the ones that I have seen coming up the most. What I'm going to talk about with these trades is whether I like them or not, and if I do like them, which team I like them for, and what the potential trade packages could be. But then also I want to talk about what's next for Giannis if he were to get traded, and what's next for the Bucks if they were to trade Giannis. And I think the first thing we have to look at is if the Milwaukee Bucks are to trade Giannis, the obvious thing they want to do is rebuild, right? The obvious thing they want to do is rebuild. But does that mean they're going to prioritize the first round picks and they're going to prioritize trying to draft well, which we aren't 100% sure whether or not this regime can do yet? Or does that mean they're going to try to get young players and they're going to try to do more like what the Toronto Raptors did when they traded away Pascal Siakam and when they traded away OG Anunoby? And I think what their do here is going to really trade who is a real trade contender, because there's teams like out here like the Thunder or the Spurs who can give up a lot of young players and a lot of draft picks, and then there's other guys where it's like Atlanta where you might get a more proven guy or a couple more proven guys that are a little bit younger, but the first round pick you're going to get is going to be a little bit more mediocre. It's going to be one good first round pick and then another first round pick that could be end of the first round. So some of the trade targets that I've seen laying around are the Atlanta Hawks, the San Antonio Spurs, the New York Knicks, the Chicago Bulls, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And first, let's just talk about the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have been playing pretty well with Trae Young out. Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker have been absolutely hooping lately. They've been winning games. Everything's looking pretty good in Atlanta. They do have some questions about the Trae Young thing. How is Trae Young going to fit? And when Trae Young does come back eventually from this injury, what are things going to look like for him? And those are all really valid questions, but I think the question is, if the Atlanta Hawks are going to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, what are they giving up? Because I think Jalen Johnson has to be untouchable in any trade with the way that he's played with Trae Young being out, and I think you have to be willing to give up. If you aren't going to be willing to give up Trae Young, you have to give up Porzingis, obviously, for the money. And then you have to be willing to give up Dyson Daniels. You have to be willing to give up Zachary Richardson. And I'm okay with that. But I think you can only give up one of those two guys. I do not think that the Atlanta Hawks can convince their fan base that you give up a Trae Young, you give up a Porzingis, and then you also give up a Richardson, you also give up a Dyson Daniels for Giannis, along with 2 first-round picks. I'm just not sure that you do that, because I just don't think that there's enough left over for you and your fan base or Giannis to think that this is a real championship contender. I don't think that you look at a team that has potentially Giannis, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, one of Zachary Richardson, Dyson Daniels, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker as like the starting 5 as a real championship contender. While they do get better, I just would have to see what the trade package is, because if it's just Trae Young and if it's just Kristaps Porzingis as the 2 guys, along with some picks, and you're able to keep both Richardson and you're able to keep Dyson Daniels and you're able to keep Jalen Johnson as well, I think that's where you might be able to look at this and say, okay, then we can work some things out and we can say we can run this as a real lineup. Now, you don't know what you're going to do with the point guard position. You have to figure that out later. But you getting Giannis and getting off of the Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis stuff, I think automatically just makes your fan base a little bit happier. But there's other trades here that I like more than this one, and I just don't know that the Atlanta Hawks have a package that they can give up that is enough to satisfy the Milwaukee Bucks without taking the Atlanta Hawks out of being real contenders. Like, if the Atlanta Hawks do these trades, Do we look at them next year when the Cleveland Cavaliers, depending on what they do with their trades, and the Detroit Pistons, depending on if they end up being major buyers, and whatever the Philadelphia 76ers do, and the Boston Celtics back healthy, and the Indiana Pacers back healthy, like, do we look at those teams and say, okay, is Atlanta and Orlando, depending on what happens with them, in New York, do we look at them and say the Atlanta Hawks are just automatically better than them? No, I think we would look at them as probably a top 3 team, but I just don't know that that would really be something that I would look at and be like, yeah, that just automatically propels them to top of the Eastern Conference #1, maybe for this season, but I just don't know that gets them past OKC or Denver in the West, even if you do get to the top of the East right now. Another one, an Eastern Conference team that's a little bit worse than the Atlanta Hawks right now is the Chicago Bulls, who are sitting at 9-11. There's been a lot of Anthony Davis talk with the Chicago Bulls. People are just talking about the Chicago Bulls needing to do something since they've fallen off from that 8-1 stretch that they had at the beginning of the season. I just don't like this trade. I don't like this trade for the Bucks because if you're the Bucks, what are you getting back? You're getting back one of Josh Giddey, Kobe White. You're not going to get back Modest. You're going to get back Vucevic and some stuff. Come on, bro. What am I doing that for? This is Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is the greatest player in franchise history. This is a top 15 player of all time. This is a top 3 power forward to ever lace him up. And you're telling me that I'm getting back Nikola Vucevic and then Josh Giddey? Stop. I don't want to. He's not 50 years old. Stop it. And then if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, why would I even want to go to Chicago? And do I even think that the regime in Chicago, while the team's a little bit better right now, do I think that the regime is going to continue to draft well? Do I think that the regime is going to turn the assets they have now into better assets when they haven't proven that they can do any of that? Modest Buzelis, who we thought was a great pick, who a lot of us were looking at as coming into the season getting a lot better, has not done that. And Billy Donovan is not even playing him the way that I think Billy Donovan should be playing him, the minutes that I think he should be getting. So why would I don't like that for anybody involved. I mean, Bulls fans would probably be lit because you get Giannis Antetokounmpo. The only legit superstar you've had since Derrick Rose. But yeah, other than that, man, I don't like that one. Now, some other ones that I do like, and these are the ones that I think you could really kind of talk yourself into depending on what the trade package is. The first one I'm going to talk about is one that I pitched in the offseason, actually, based on just things that I thought the Knicks needed, and one that I'm very happy to see. It looks like it could be very realistic now is the New York Knicks, and I hope I said this on video because if I did, y'all can go back and find it. I love this trade. Karl Anthony Towns and whatever else you have to give up, as long as it's not OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, as long as it's not one of your core guys or Josh Hart or something that you have to give up alongside Karl Anthony Towns, ship him off and bring Giannis in, and you don't ask yourself any questions. You automatically win the Eastern Conference. I don't care nothing about Cleveland. I don't care nothing about Detroit. I don't care nothing about any of that. If you are the New York Knicks and the asking price is Karl Anthony Towns, whatever picks you can give up, I don't even know what picks they have that are available, and another piece that is not one of OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, or Jalen Brunson, give it up immediately. You don't even think about it. You bring Giannis there to New York, you sell 100 million jerseys in the first day, and you immediately solidify yourself as the biggest market in basketball again and the favorites in the Eastern Conference. That is probably my favorite Giannis trade. You can talk about San Antonio, who I'm going to bring up. You can talk about OKC, who I'm going to bring up. And you can talk about another Eastern Conference contender in Detroit, who I also love. I do not love the fit of Giannis Antetokounmpo along any of those teams as they are currently constructed as I do with this team. Now, there are 2 other teams, though, that I think you could put Giannis on those teams and you say, okay, you trust them to build around Giannis, especially with the current pieces that they have. And I think the first one is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't think this is going to happen because I don't think the Thunder have any need for this to happen. But here's what I'll say. The Golden State Warriors didn't have any need for Kevin Durant up until they lost in the finals to LeBron James. So the only way that I see this happening is if OKC either has some major fumble in the finals or they don't make it to the finals. That's the only way, because if OKC makes it to the finals and they lose in 7, if they win the championship again, I think there's no way they do this. But if they don't, if Denver beats them the way that I've thought in the offseason they have a chance to, if they go to the finals and they lose, if something like that happens and Giannis is still available come the offseason, I would be shocked if Sam Presti didn't call for Giannis. I would be shocked if that didn't happen. I don't know what the package would be, but let's say you got to keep Chet, you have to keep Dub, you have to keep Shea. I don't care what the package is. If you can keep those 3 players and you can add Giannis Antetokounmpo, you give up the Clippers pick. I don't care if it's the first overall pick. You give it up. You give up Aaron Wiggins. You give up Isaiah Joe. You give up Isaiah Hartenstein. You give up Lou Dort if you have to. I think now if you're going to give up Lou Dort, you can't give up Alex Caruso, so you got to keep one of them. If you have no choice, you'll give up Cason Wallace. I don't love it, but this is Giannis Antetokounmpo we are talking about. If you can keep those other three guys, I really don't give a damn about what you have to give up to get Giannis. You get him. But like I said, I just don't think that that's going to happen unless they don't make the finals or unless they lose in the finals in a bad fashion. I like it for the Thunder, but only if that happens, because I think if the Thunder do this and they're on pace to beat the Warriors' 73-9 record, or if they do this and they're on pace to be a 70-win team, even if they're not going to beat the record, I just don't know. I don't know that the fan base would be 100% happy. I think that it would split the fans. No matter how good Giannis is, I do think there would be people, especially people who are not OKC fans, but just fans of basketball, just analysts, just people doing this as a job, just outsiders looking in like myself. I think I would look at that trade and I'd be like, I mean, okay, the talent is there, but we've seen the talent in recent years not accumulate to anything. And when you've already proven you can win a championship and you haven't had anything change, why would you change something? That's why I'm saying I think the only way OKC does this and convinces their fans 100% to be in with it is if they somehow lose in the playoffs or in the finals this year. Now, two other teams. First, San Antonio. This is one that I think I also talked about last season. This is one I think a lot of people talked about last season. Right now, in this exact moment, as things currently stand, with the San Antonio Spurs being the 4th seed out west, being 14-6, with De'Aaron Fox playing the way he's playing, with both Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle having missed time since De'Aaron Fox has been back, along with Wembanyama missing time since De'Aaron Fox has been back, with the way Devin Vassell and De'Aaron Fox just beat the Denver Nuggets the other day, even though the Denver Nuggets haven't been fully healthy. I don't give a damn. It's still a win against the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic. I don't know that you do that yet, because what do you have to give up? I think you're years too early on giving. I think you're at least a year too early on giving up Stephon Castle, and I am a big fan of Dylan Harper. I do not think there is any trade on the market right now for the San Antonio Spurs in which I am willing to give up Dylan Harper. I'm not going to lie to you. And I think Stephon Castle has played so well, especially defensively in his time this year, that you just don't give him up yet. So then does that mean you give up De'Aaron Fox? Earlier in the season when the San Antonio Spurs were like 8-1, and they started off super hot, and De'Aaron Fox hadn't played a game yet, and Dylan Harper was hooping, and Stephon Castle was hooping, I might have been on board with you. I might have said, okay, you might be willing to trade De'Aaron Fox, but with the way he's been playing, with Wemby missing time and with those other guys missing time, like I mentioned, I don't think you can give him up right now. With the way you look right now, you're already ahead of schedule. I do not think any of us thought they were really going to be a 4 seed and they were going to have such a hot start when they did in the beginning of the season. I had them as an 8 seed ending the season. I was debating between them and the Dallas Mavericks on being the 8 seed or the 9th seed. So they're already ahead of schedule. I just do not think, unless something changes or unless you fall off and regress back to what we thought you were going to be during this season, I don't think there's any way you do it. I think you're at least a year too early on doing that. Especially because I just don't love the package you would give up. I think you're willing to give up whatever picks you have to give up for Giannis if you're San Antonio, but just like De'Aaron Fox just played too well, and those other guards have just been, they're just so young and so talented that I just don't think you can give them up yet. And then the last team is the Detroit Pistons. And this is another one like the Knicks that I think I love. This is probably my second favorite one if they were to do it right now. My only question is, what do you give up? If you're giving up Jaden Ivey and and Tobias Harris and some picks, that's cool. But you can't give up Asar Thompson. I think if you give up the other 4, Ron Holland, I'm willing to give up Ron Holland. I've seen people, especially Pistons fans, saying they might not be willing to give up Ron Holland. As long as you keep Asar Thompson, I personally would not give a damn if I'm a Pistons fan about giving up Ron Holland alongside Tobias Harris and Jaden Ivey or someone else. Now, I think you do want to keep, obviously, Jalen Duren and Cade are untouchable. You have to keep them. I think you want to keep Isaiah Stewart. I think Isaiah Stewart is a really big culture guy there. I think he's like a Dennis Rodman. He's like a Draymond Green. He's one of those guys that on a championship team you just kind of need. You want him around for the long haul. You want him around, especially while you guys are young and developing. He's a Bruce Brown. He's a Marcus Smart. He's somebody that you want around while you guys get to that point where you are true contenders. And I think that if you lost him, it would be a very big locker room blow, and that's not something that I think Giannis in and of himself makes up for, just because of how big I think Isaiah Stewart is to their culture as a basketball team. But if you give up, like I said, the package that I said before, where it's Ron Holland, Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, some picks, or something along those lines, where you're keeping Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and Cade Cunningham, I think you do it. I think you pull the trigger 100 times out of 100, and I think you immediately go past the Knicks, and you immediately go past every single Eastern Conference team in terms of being the number 1 contender out East. That's about all I got to say about Giannis, man. This is easily the craziest news to come out of the NBA season thus far when it comes to free agency or trades or whatever, or trades or whatever. This is going to make this a very, very potentially interesting trade deadline. already more than like see guys we were seeing that are going to become available like in 10 days or so. Now that Giannis is already seeming to push his way out, this could be a very, very interesting trade deadline. And if not, it is probably going to be a very interesting offseason. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Keep God first as always. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and everything like that, man. Let me know where y'all would like to see Giannis go and everything like that. All right, Milwaukee Bucks fans, good luck to y'all. Peace out.